Reminiscing important events in the congregation's life plays a big role in the church's corporeal existence, not only because of the sheer joy it brings to members as they travel far in their memories, but also serves to fortify spiritual bonds as believers recount God's manifold blessings through the years. It has the potential to stimulate cooperation among members as they share the responsibilities of carrying the load in a road of service that lay ahead, knowing that God's grace that led them thus far will surely lead them home. Everything starts from home. From the Patches family, before starting their ministry in their adopted country, their home was in Greenville, South Carolina. As a first lieutenant with the 1st Special Forces Group, Dennis Potts returned from Okinawa and Thailand in August of 1972. Before his military duties, he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in German from the prestigious Georgetown University in 1969. His classmates were Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and Bill Clinton. After his honorable discharge from the military, he started graduate work at Bob Jones University to know God's calling in his life. He was under the tutelage of some of the world's best theologians, but humble ministers of God's Word. While seeking God's guidance in the field of service where God wanted him to be, the Lord impressed upon his heart a young office worker, Sheila Owen, who worked in the donation office in the campus. Her devout parents nurtured the beautiful North Carolina lass in the Christian faith and prepared her to eventually complement the work of the young theology student. The young preacher pursued his wedding proposal that culminated at the wedding altar on June 15, 1974. They were blessed with their firstborn child, Elizabeth Allen, who was born on July 11, 1975. Almost 2 years later, a second daughter was born on April 9, 1977, whom they named Lydia Elaine. After much prayer, the couple considered going to the country of Indonesia, where great political upheavals were then developing. Meantime, preaching opportunities opened up for Pastor. He was eventually ordained to preach the word at the age of 28 in November 1975 at the Baptist Church in Georgia. His master's degree in theology was finally completed in May 1976. For 2 years, the couple prepared for the field with their prayers, and the support was raised, but the door closed to Indonesia, primarily because of Pastor's background in military intelligence. When his visa application was denied, the mission director of Gospel Fellowship Association, their mission board, asked them to consider the Philippines. GFA had 3 single girls there already, but no man to begin a work. The Lord granted the Potches the peace they needed to make the transition. With the gospel message burning in their hearts, the couple could not prolong their stay in America. Even when unknown to them that Ate Sheila was on the family way, the couple, with the 2 little daughters in tow, finally arrived in Manila on February 7, 1979. Those strangers in their new home, little did they know that there, among the people they chose to love, they would spend almost half of their life and fondly call the Philippines their adopted home. Later in that same year, on September 7, their one and only son was born at Makati Medical Center. They named him Thomas Allen. Upon their arrival in the Philippines, the Potts family did not waste time in immersing themselves into the ministry by mingling with the populace and working with fellow missionaries.
It was the moment we've been waiting for. Having been accepted by GFA in 1976, we were on deputation to go to Indonesia. The Lord shut the door around 1978. And about that time, we had 3 single girls who were already living in the Philippines, Barb Mason, Edna Giuliano, and Brenda Hager. And they were actually living in this home here at 19 Matasalan. Before us, they had arrived here about 6 months before we had ever arrived, and our mission director challenged us to consider the Philippines, which we did. And having then secured our visas, we arrived in the Philippines February 7th of 1979. And we immediately came and were hosted by our 3 single girls and stayed here for about 1 month prior to moving to Fairview. So this indeed is the very first home where we stayed in as a family.
For almost exactly 1 year, the family attended services at Fairview Baptist Church and had close fellowship with Pastor Gideon Umandak and the famous singer-turned-preacher Eddie Mesa.
We're standing here at the intersection of Winston and Dunhill, pretty obvious, in the Fairview subdivision. Used to be called Farview in our days. After several weeks of living on Madasalin Street with the girls, our family moved out here in March of 1979 to the home just next door to this lovely home of the landlord. We're going to go and view the actual home where we lived. Again, we spent one wonderful year here getting adjusted to the culture and to the language and the people. From March of 79 to March of 80 when we moved in the central district of Diliman. So here, my darling wife Sheila and I and Elizabeth and Lydia and baby Tommy began our life in the Philippines.
Though busy with visitation and accepting preaching engagements, Pastor Potts patiently looked for the Lord's leading to begin church planting. On January 25, he began looking for a possible place where a work could commence. Pastor Umandap shared with Pastor the need of taking over an infant work of an American missionary, Dwight Strickland, who would soon return to his native Texas. At Brother Strickland's request, 17B Matiaga Street, Central District became the staging area for the holding of the very first Sunday worship service on February 17, 1980.
Early in 1980, while we were staying in Fairview, Pastor Gideon Umandap of the Fairview Baptist Church approached me and asked me whether I'd be willing to consider taking over a relatively young work. We're talking just a couple months of a missionary named Dwight Strickland from Texas. I prayed about it and I accepted it. And in February of 1980, we began meeting right here at number 17A Machigas Street in the Sala of Dwight Strickland. So here we stayed. This was a monumental place where we began the actual work of the Gospel Light Baptist Church. In those first months, Brother Strickland wanted the name of the church to remain Quezon City Baptist Mission, which was the name just for a couple months until we changed it to the Gospel Light Baptist Church. But this is, in all actuality, the very place where the Gospel Light Baptist Church was begun.
26 people were in attendance in the morning service and 15 in the evening. After a few weeks, when Dwight Strickland left for good, March 23 to be exact, the living room of the Patches duplex at 25A Marunong Street became the meeting place. 3 days later, the first prayer meeting was held.
So officially beginning in March of 1980, the Quezon City Baptist Mission, or as it would become, Gospel Light Baptist Church, began meeting in our apartment here in our sala, here at 25A Marunong Street, and we stayed here until June of 1980. So this was the continuation of the beginning of the Gospel Light Baptist Church at our own home.
I remember very well that we began in a very small house where your present pastor and his wife live. This is at 25 Marunong Street, Teachers Village. We were only a handful of individuals who attended when it first all began one Sunday, and that was also the same Sunday that I first met Pastor Potts.
Since the believers steadily grew in number, there was a clamor to scout for a larger meeting place. Divine Providence directed the steps of Pastor Potts to meet a fiscal, Attorney Leah Castello, on June 10. She managed the daily operation of a non-government organization called the Federation of Women's Civic Organizations, or FWCO, and invited Pastor to use their facilities.
During those 17 years of renting the FWCO building, we had the use of it on Saturday evenings for choir practice, all day Sunday and Wednesday evening. As you can see, really nothing has changed over the years. It's still being used as a nursery school. We put away everything prior to services, and following the end of the services, we had to return everything to its rightful place prior to leaving the building. So that is the way we operated for 17 years. This, where I'm standing, was the position of our pulpit, the sacred desk, for those 17 years. And from this pulpit, I trust, sounded out sound doctrine. People sat out here faithfully listening and receiving and then applying the Word of God.
In June of 1980, the FWCO Hall, which initially was rented at 200 pesos a week, became the venue for worship and fellowship.
Yes, we're seated here today, having the privilege of being with Fiscal Leah Castello. In 1980, around June, I forget the circumstances how I met you, Fiscal. I went over to the City Hall, and out of the kindness of her heart, having heard the Word of God as a little girl growing up. She wanted us to be able to rent the FWCO building, the sign you see right here. And that began the loving relationship that we've had with you, Fiscal, for 17 years. Little did we ever believe that we would be here for 17 years. And but it's been a joy for us and a privilege for us because, you know, other places, quite frankly, Fiscal, they would have charged us a lot of money. But you, the low amount that you charged us was for us quite a blessing and quite an advantage. And so for 17 years, we established the work here at the FWCO, and from the beginning, it has been headed up by the ever energetic and ever youthful Leah Costello. Of course, her daughter is Nanette Costello Daza. Fiscal, would you like to say anything to greet our people?
I would like to greet Pastor Pats in particular and all the members of the church. I had been privileged that during the first early years of this church, it has occupied this building. I remember very well, Pastor Pats, that we had charged you an amount, but when I left for Europe, I said to myself, I think I should decrease the rent because if anything happens to me, then it will be difficult for them to ask the officers, the incoming officers, to have the rent decreased. So I did that.
That's right.
You remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So for the privilege of having you with us, Pastor Pats, I thank you very much. It has strengthened my faith very much.
Thank you. So Gospel Light Baptist Church people, we owe a great debt of gratitude to this young lady right here, Fiscal Leah Costello, for the kindness she has demonstrated to us for 17 years.
It was both spacious and accessible to the congregation at the time, being located at the back of Quezon City Hall.
The landmark being 16 stories high, people did not easily get lost coming to the FWCO building.
On June 15, Ed, Edward, and Bombet Baguio and Mariano Reyno were baptized. At that time, the first converts were accommodated at the baptistry of Fairview Baptist Church. During the early years, Pastor Pats had some faithful co-workers who also answered the call to bring the gospel to the Filipinos. Some of those who extended their hand to help in the various ministries of the fledgling work were Pastor Gary Jones and his wife Edith, who, after helping the Patches for a few months, left for Imus, Cavite, where a new church planting work was begun in August 1981. Barbara Mason and Brenda Hager, fellow GFAers, helped the Patches hold Bible clubs to accommodate the growing number of kids who yearned to hear God's words. After working for more than a year at GLBC, Barbara left to join the Joneses in their ministry in Cavite. On May 1, 1980, another reinforcement came to GLBC in the person of Brenda Garen. The fruits of their labors are evident in the lives of the children and ladies who remained at church. In October 1985, Brenda Hager moved to Odiongan, Romblon and worked in JLBC's first daughter church. She later transferred to Tagaytay to help with Bethany Bible Believers Church, a daughter church of Pastor Jones. In September 1986, another educator missionary, Jeannie Raymond, came to teach the missionary kids and served as Sunday school teacher of the single ladies at church along with Brenda Garen. Steve and Kristen Lohoff arrived in 1984 and have directed the theological training of the Bob Jones Memorial Bible College since 1985 before announcing their change of field to Vietnam in September 2004. The Lohoff's ministry helped Gospel Light produce preachers and teachers who became keen students of the Bible. Bud Hall co-founded the Bible Institute, provided a furlough replacement for Pastor Potts when he and Ate Sheila were on furlough from 1983 to 1984. John Hiller, accompanied by wife Mary Beth, replaced Pastor when he took his second furlough from 1988 to 1989. Phil Kamibayashiyama, who arrived in 1991 to teach at BJMBI, was soon led to his lifetime partner when he met the church secretary, Mila Sinopera. Doug and Ruth Bakoric joined the GFA Philippines missionary family in 2002 and have been used of the Lord to greatly enhance the music ministry of GLBC. As commonly noticed in many pioneering works, the most zealous group of people in striving to obey the Lord in the earliest days was the youth. Some college students, like Junie Munsaya, were encouraged to attend in the services of Gospel Light. He was the key person God used to witness to the entire Munsaya family, whose matriarch, Ate Ching, was instrumental in encouraging the entire brood put their faith in Christ. Joy Munsayak Evangelista, though reluctant at first to play the piano, has been a key pianist for years.
At ako'y nagpapasalamat sa Ministeryo ng Gospel Light sapagkat ito ang ginamit niya upang madala ang Ebanghelyo sa aking mga mahal sa buhay, sa aking mga kapatid at sa aking mga magulang. Salamat pong muli.
Danny De La Cruz was the driver of the church van who quietly did his job. He would even volunteer to set up pews and chairs on Sunday mornings after cleaning the tiled floors of the church restroom. He was the key person God used to invite a lot of his high school classmates from Claret. In 1981, an Ateneo student who led the college campus ministry joined Pastor Potts and served as his assistant for almost 2 years. Bobby Joe Livioco, who now pastors a church in Pasig, invited mostly college students from Ateneo and UP who were influenced by the campus ministry. Some of those he encouraged to attend the services at GLBC were Aimee, who would eventually become his wife, Ina de la Paz, now Bunyi, and Pinky Reyes. Ina regularly brought her 2 young sisters, Chichi and Dimdim, to church. Odi Menyes is another person whose desire to reach out to family members paved the way to win the entire household for Christ. Through the years, one by one, the Menyes clan was won to the Lord. The senior Menyes even started a mission outpost in faraway Odiongan, Romblon.
The 2 blessings that I received from GLBC is that my late husband, my 6 children, and I were all saved in the GLBC ministry. And then when my husband got very sick in 1986, when he was brought to the hospital to be operated of brain tumor, it was Pastor Potts who volunteered to drive us to the hospital. The GLBC family prayed for his healing. The GLBC choir also visited him at the hospital and sang happy birthday to him.
One morning in June 1981, an engineering student named Gilbert Castillo heard the gospel message for the first time and approached the altar during the invitation, where Pastor Potts patiently counseled and led him to believe on the Lord Jesus. It turned out to be a father and son relationship as the new convert became a trusted disciple and took great responsibilities in church matters. Pastor Castillo answered the call in 1990 to be a missionary at GLBC Odiongan, where he and his family ministered for 13 years.
Simula noon, nagkaroon ng mga misyonerong sinusuportahan ng Gospel Light Baptist Church. Nagkaroon ito ng puso sa misyon at sa katunayan, ang ministeryo sa Odiongan, Romblon ang isa sa bunga ng puso ng misyon ng Gospel Light Baptist Church. At pagkatapos ng 5 taon na pagiging misyon ng Gospel Light Baptist Church, matapos itong umpisahan ng mga kapatiran din dito sa pangungunan nila Mr. Cesar Meñez, nila Brother Odi, nila Mike, nila Brother Edgar Haki-Haka. Nagpatuloy ang gawain doon. Ngunit nangailangan sila ng magpapastor doon at pinalad naman na katatapos lang ng aking pag-aaral sa Bob Jones Memorial Bible Institute at matapos namin ipanalangin ang aking may bahay na si Cynthia, kami ay nagtungo sa Ojongan Romblon noong January 10, 1990.
Boy Cabonilas is one person who was very fruitful in the harvest of souls. Sir Boy, as fondly called, while guidance counselor at Balara Academy, won many young students to the Lord who eventually became faithful GLBC members. The growing number of people and their various needs made it necessary for Pastor Potts to commission the first deacon to serve from among the men in the person of Oji Eugenio sometime in 1984. While the Potts family went back to the States for furlough in 1983, Pastor Bud Hall was asked to supervise the work at GLBC. Upon their return, it was a surprise to many to see a welcome addition to the Potts family. A baby girl they named Julia Louise became literally a bundle of joy to the church family. But Pastor was likewise surprised to see a lot of additions to the church. In January of 1985, Pastor Potts visited the First Daughter Church in Ojongan, Romblon and baptized quite a number of converts in the Bay. Later in the year, the opening of the Bob Jones Memorial Bible Institute was a source of great joy to the hearts of many, offering biblical training to members of GLBC. In 1984, the growing number of missionaries compelled the ladies to form a support band called the Ladies Missionary Prayer Group. In fact, as an outgrowth of the great emphasis given to missionary support, in the following year, the enthusiasm gave birth to what became a yearly holding of missions conferences.
It was also in this early part of the life of the church that we met the missionaries whom we would eventually support in their work. And we had Brother De Torres, Pastor Tinoy Espinas, and Pastor Joe Malacao. And we enjoyed the times we had with them, and they came to Manila, fellowshipping with us, and telling us about their work in the faraway places in the country.
As a fundamentalist, Pastor Potts had conscientiously laid the foundation which persuaded many young people in church to obey 2 Corinthians 6:14. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. He could not emphasize enough the troubles and heartaches couples experience when believers chose to marry unbelieving spouses. It might surprise many to find out that GLBC seems to hold the record for the most number of couples who met their spouses from among the many church members. The 6 weddings in the year were a striking signal for the setting up of the Married Couples Fellowship class, which Egay de Piton presided over during the first year. A most generous gift from GFA in the US, along with the sizable loans, permitted Pastor to start planning for the building. A very large loan from Singapore interest-free also boosted GLBC's hopes of soon having a building of its own. The burden of payments was finally lifted when in September 2004, the church was able to pay off all remaining debt. To God be the glory. Also in June of 1994, Eric Garcia transferred from Baguio Baptist Church to GLBC. A few months later, he was appointed assistant pastor. On Saturday, February 4, 1995, a big turnout of volunteer workers of all ages came with shovels, stick brooms, rakes, and dustpans to show their willingness to clean the lot that for a long time was neglected by the caretakers. This tiring but satisfying experience encouraged the members to pray harder for the hastening of the construction. The actual construction of the building began in March of 1996 after city officials granted pertinent permits without lagay. The engineering expertise of Benedict Evangelista and Danny de la Cruz matched the architectural savvy of Joel Trebilla. Like the talented Bezaliel, the designer of the tabernacle, they made sure that not only should the solid form of the building convey a spirit of worship, but that its function must provide a spiritual haven when people enter its courts with praise and leave with satisfied spirits. Finally, on June 15, 1997, the prayers and aspirations of the church people came into reality. Their walk by faith for the past 17 years was richly rewarded by the sight of a 6-story structure, complete with elevator and marble floors on the ground and first floors. The highlight of the day was the dedicatory message by Dr. Bob Jones Jr.
Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Sing the Lord, sing the Lord. Let us gather to the foreground of all. Sing the Lord, sing the Lord, sing the Lord. The blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Sing the Lord, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore.
The following day, 30 enrolled students began their educational sojourn in a truly Christian environment. Gospel Light Christian Academy was now a reality. No doubt, their parents were very much pleased to know that their kids were in safe hands under the tutelage of mature members of GLBC.
Now, how blessed we are to have this edifice with complete facilities. May we be able to utilize it to the fullest for our children ministry. To our God be the highest praise.
At the beginning of the year 1998, for almost a week, the long-needed revival was made possible when the father and son team of Dr. Hall and Barry Webb conducted a series of evangelistic and revival meetings. The hearts of our people were greatly moved. In the new millennium of 2000, on the 27th of February, Dr. Paul Chu from Singapore provided the steering challenge to the people of GLBC on their 20th anniversary. In April of 2003, Pastor Eric Garcia and his family bid farewell to the people they worked with for almost a decade when they enplaned to their new mission outpost in Seattle, Washington. A well-deserved tribute to Pastor Pats and Ate Sheila was purposely showered on them on February 7, 2004, exactly 25 years since they arrived as missionaries. The people were fully aware of the fact that the couple was separated from all their beloved children for the first time in the couple's 30 years of happily married life, celebrated on June 15, 2004. It is therefore our desire to chronicle the special occurrences of God's dealings with the church family at Gospel Light Baptist Church for the past 25 glorious years. Doing so makes us more cognizant of the daily workings of God. He controlled our past experiences as individuals, is the wellspring of our present strength, and promises to be the prime mover behind all our achievements as a church in the coming days.
Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leans against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Onward then, ye people, join our happy throng, then with